When moving locomotives in a maintenance facility, many factors come into play that ensure your safety and the safety of your co-workers. This module will examine considerations that must be made before moving a locomotive. Making a visual inspection, becoming familiar with locomotive braking systems, and controlling trailing units. In most cases, the moves that you make will be planned in advance by your supervisor.
Okay, here's what we got, guys. On the outside of East 27, we got 2 units. I need to know if you can move them in the east end of 18 track for me.
Fine, we can handle that.
Oh, you guys are good.
Well, thank you.
Now, plan where and how you are going to move your consist. Is the track straight? Will switches need to be lined? What conditions are the locomotives in? And are they live or dead? Now that you are at your consist, make a visual inspection of each unit.
Why don't you go ahead and make a ground inspection? I'll go up here and check the cab.
Sure.
Walk down both sides of the units and look for any obvious defects that may prevent you from moving the locomotive safely. If necessary, connect the walkway chains between the locomotives. If locomotives are to be MU connected, make certain blue signal protection is in place. Locomotives do not have to be MU connected in order to move. On units that are not connected, make certain the brakes are fully released on the trailing units. Make note that additional time and distance is required to stop a consist with units that are not MU'd. If necessary, connect the MU hoses. And make certain the angle and cutout cocks between the locomotives are open. Examine the piston cylinders and ensure that they are out and that brake shoes are applied. Now watch the brakes set and release on each unit that will be moved. Finally, make sure all handbrakes are released. Satisfied that the locomotives can be safely moved by the ground inspection, let's enter the cab. Before you attempt to move a locomotive, you must understand and become familiar with the air brake system. All locomotives are equipped with 2 duplex air gauges. On the left side of the control stand, the white pointer indicates equalizing reservoir pressure and displays the charge of the equalizing reservoir as controlled by the feed or regulating valve. The red pointer indicates main reservoir pressure and displays the charge of the main reservoir system. Be certain there is not less than 120 pounds of main reservoir pressure before you attempt to move the consist. On the right side of the control stand, the white pointer indicates brake pipe pressure of the locomotive. The red pointer indicates brake cylinder pressure developed on the locomotive. These gauges must be observed frequently to detect any changes in pressure that affects the safe operation of the locomotive. Now that you're familiar with the air gauges, let's take a look at the brake equipment itself. There are 4 primary brake systems on a locomotive. The handbrake, which secures a locomotive when it is stationary. The dynamic brake system, which should not be used by mechanical employees for the purpose of moving a locomotive. At the speeds allowed in a mechanical facility, the dynamic brake is ineffective. The automatic brake system, which controls brakes on the entire train as well as locomotive brakes, and the independent brakes, which only controls the brakes on the locomotive. For movement in a mechanical facility, this is the desired brake system to be used. When moving locomotives in a maintenance facility, the desired braking system to use is the independent brake valve. With this valve, you can manually apply and release the locomotive brakes independent of the train brakes. The positions of the 26L and 24RL independent brake valves are release and application. Release is located to the extreme left and releases the locomotive brakes. The application position consists of a zone from release to the extreme right. As the handle is moved to the right, the locomotive brake cylinder pressure will increase until full application. Quick release is achieved with the handle depressed at any location in the quadrant. This releases locomotive brake cylinder pressure created from an automatic brake pipe application. Associated with the independent brake valve are manually operated valves to cut the brakes in and out. The MU2A26RL and rotaire valve on 24RL equipment. On 26L equipment, the spring-loaded MU2A valve has 3 positions. The lead or dead position cuts in the independent brake valve, and trail 6, 24, and 26 cuts out the brake valve. On 24RL equipment, the K2A rotaire valve has 4 positions. Now that you have made a visual inspection of the consist, have become familiar with and have tested the brake system, and set the trailing units for the move, our next module will give you a close look at actually moving our locomotive consist in a maintenance facility. When your daily schedule involves moving a locomotive, you need to pay close attention to many small details to make the move a safe and efficient one. In this module, we will look at hand signals in communication and actually moving the locomotive. Now that you have an understanding of the brakes and the operation of a locomotive, let's examine the different modes of communication that you should be familiar with before you move a locomotive. Hand signals are a very important method of communication that enable a helper or ground man to relay messages to an operator or engineer. This action means proceed. This action means stop. This action means easy. And this action means back up. At night, a lantern may be used with these motions to relay messages to the operator. This action means proceed. This action means stop. This action means easy. And this action means back up. Radios and other means of voice communications may be used instead of hand signals to convey information when hand signals are not practical. When radio communication is lost, the movement must be stopped within half the distance indicated by the last communication. Visual inspection of the consist, become familiar with locomotive operation and signals, you are ready to make your move. Discuss the move with your partner so there is no confusion as to how and where you are going to go. Remember, your partner is your eyes and ears. Do not move without his or her signal. Once the move has been planned, make certain the way is clear of all obstacles, men and machines. Remove all blue signal protection. Now make certain the brakes apply and release prior to the move to determine the brake cylinder pistons are operating and the lines to the trucks are not cut out. Before movement, make certain the locomotive headlight is turned on. Now, follow the groundman's signals and begin to move by slowly increasing throttle. Then roll and test your stopping ability. Caution: when moving a single unit, the throttle and brake commands will result in a quick response. When locomotives are MU'd, it takes substantially longer for throttle and brakes to apply. If at any time you lose sight of the groundman, movement must be stopped immediately until you receive a clear signal from him again. If coupling is required, you must make certain that the locomotive you are moving to can be coupled and moved safely. Make certain that it is not protected by a blue signal. When coupling 2 or more units, stretch the joint on each unit added and make certain that the coupler lock pin is in the lock position. The utmost care must be exercised to provide safe movement within the service tracks. Movement must not exceed 5 miles per hour. Before engines are moved through gates, doorways, or entering any facility, come to a stop and make certain the way is clear. If clearances are tight, make certain you and any person riding the locomotive will safely clear the area before continuing. When entering shops, stop approximately 15 feet before reaching the end of the stall. Then proceed to the end of the stall at 1 mile per hour. Remember, when one or more units are MU'd, additional time and distance is required to stop. If engines are being shoved, an employee must take a conspicuous position on the leading end of the movement to protect the movement. Movements into spur tracks must be controlled to prevent damage at the end of the spur. Stop at least 150 feet before the end of the spur and proceed under the direction of a leading groundman. Whenever possible, more than one movement within the same trail should be avoided to prevent possible injury. When engines are working on both ends of the same track, both operators must be aware of each other's movements to avoid accidents and injuries. When moving a consist, be aware of the location of all derails. A controlled movement must not be made over a derail in the derailing position. Derails must be locked in the derailing position after a movement is made, regardless if there are cars or locomotives on the track they protect. Derails must be protected by a blue signal and must be in place once the derail is thrown. Crossovers must not be locked or lined for movement when another movement is approaching. After moving your consist, be certain you are not fouling another track. Then secure the locomotives with handbrakes, and do not depend on the air brakes to hold the engine in place when it is left unattended. When moving locomotives in a maintenance facility, safety is the guideline. Never get on or off moving equipment. Make certain you and your partner are sure of the path you intend to take to complete the movement. Coordinate with each other exactly what the moves will be. Make sure that the path is clear of men and machines. By following these simple guidelines of planning, teamwork, and communication, moving a locomotive in a maintenance facility will be a safe and efficient assignment.